Hello and welcome to episode number 79 of Daily Global Insights. This is January 21st, 2021, and I have with me our panelist, co-panelist, Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, good morning. We are in day two of Biden administration.
Yes, and yesterday, first day at the office, Biden signed a slew of executive orders, at least 17, I believe. We're just going to look at the numbers. We're not going to go into the details today. We will not have the time, but we can take a bird's eye view at some of the salient features to get a sense of which direction this administration is headed. And to know more about it, let's go over to Sridharji. Sridharji, how was the first day in office of Joe Biden?
I think Mr. Biden, true to his promise, he got on to the business. It was a very what you call nice and simple and somber ceremony. After kicked off with some very important kind of statements to the public in his oratorial presidential inaugural address, where he says, we may agree or we may agree to disagree and we disagree, but what we are going to do is we're not going to walk away. That's one of his kinds of statements. And the other stuff is, if you still disagree, that's okay. That's part of the democracy, right? So the story is, but we want to work towards one common kind of a purpose. So normally those kinds of, flavored speeches, statements and sentences that typically make a good speech, but doesn't really translate into the main objective, which is a divided nation, unification, and their alignment around the policies. The policies absolutely diametrically opposite to Trump's policies. In fact, five of them, or if you kind of categorize, five of them lead the list. And in fact, the socialists and progressives within the party said, there is no question of we walking away, and there's no question of we taking the prisoners. They identified healthcare, education, student loans, climate, and immigration as the pillars besides the stimulus in terms of getting the economy back. So in other words, those were five key headlines. And if you take a look in no specific order, on the climate side, Paris Accord is signed, done. United States will be back in Paris Accord. United States will be back on the healthcare side, back in WHO. We will work with the rest of the world in making sure that the best resources are available and best access to medication, and the process of discovery of any illness and stuff comes out. All these kinds of bombastic statements came out. So WHO, we are back into WHO. Then on the consequence, one is we discussed it, Keystone, canceled. Okay. The second one is the lease that was given out in the North Dakota Arctic Reserve, Alaskan Reserve, and that lease is there is a moratorium that has been put on that kind of lease that was auctioned. The first lease is already with the National Alaskan Petroleum, and they produce about somewhere between 350 to 400,000 barrels a day. Obviously affects the wildlife. That is the view of the Democratic Party. 23 million acres was around that area was the deal. So that's on the climate side. On the immigration side, two important decisions. One is on the census. All illegal fellows need to be counted. And so he's put a hold. He's put, I don't know how Supreme Court will react. SCOTUS, this is. Will react, but the story is, they need to be included. He also opened up, he has also told that, all these caravans that are coming from Central America, you all have to wait before you kind of, we normalize things. He appointed a new head of asylum office. He also opened up the countries which were on the no-fly list or restricted list. We don't want to go through each one of these countries. He said, we cannot, be saying, Muslim nations, non-Muslim nations, and we cannot discriminate. So he has asked them to process visa in some of these nations. So that's on the immigration side. On the student loan side, he says whether that will go through Senate or to get a formal finance bill ratification, he's talking about waiving $10,000. So that's on the education side. I think the healthcare side we mentioned, he has joined the WHO. And then he's also thinking about this universal healthcare and extending further the Obamacare provisions, which was a little bit modified or put on hold by Trump. So that'll be kind of back into action. So I think that's an education. They're spending more money. You can see. I think there will be even more money coming into education, which is this equality question that is coming up. Whether there are different graded schools that are going to be introduced remains to be seen. So we are into the thick of business. The executive actions unwinds many of the policies that were put in place and kicks into motion the progressive agenda.
One thought, sir, on the impeachment, not impeachment, on the census taking of the Supreme Court decision, the SCOTUS decision of allowing illegals also to be counted. See, now the Democratic Party, which is the one who's usually the beneficiary of all these things, should they be normalized for a citizenship, they would know at the government's expense what are the numbers that they can expect across the world, across the country.
Well, I think that I'm trying to understand this question. I hope I can give you the right answer.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, without having to do the hard yards on the ground, the Democratic Party will know what is the boost in their numbers, expected boost in their numbers.
I think the strike rate should be. Look, I think I don't want to sound too much. Usually, you'll find that the honeymoon period it favors the people who actually facilitate it. Once the honeymoon period is over, people get integrated into the society. Maybe their personal preferences and choices and their values characterized. There's nothing called as, I normalized 12 million illegal aliens into a two-tier model of 5-year, 8-year harmonization in terms of residency and citizenship. And so, therefore, I have a lifelong commitment to this party. They may take membership into the Democratic Party as they become citizens, But there's nothing called lifelong. So they may change views. But in the initial honeymoon period, naturally, the party that has given them that flavor carries the what you call the flesh. So therefore, you would assume that I didn't want to sound the word the curry, but the story is that curry and the flavor goes with the initial party that has given them the grant of the compassion.
One look at the US politics outside of White House. Nancy Pelosi has said that President Trump could be an accessory to murder on January 6th. Is this shrill talk, or what is exactly going on? Because if you see, yesterday we talked about this, a senior Democratic Senator, Dick Durbin, said that there is going to be no impeachment. So now we are looking at two parts of the Democratic Party saying different things. What do you make of it, sir?
Look, I think there has not been no love lost between Nancy Pelosi and President Trump. They've never struck a relationship, never had a relationship. I don't even know. If I recall, I don't even know whether Nancy Pelosi attended the Trump swearing in when he took over president. Without sounding, too what you call, biased one way or the other, there's a lot of criticism that Trump was not present yesterday from a protocol. Quite a number of people were absent, important people were absent from the Democratic Party when Trump took over the presidency, including Nancy Pelosi. Be it her rhetoric, be it this, the launch of this Russian interference and all the investigations that happened, the first impeachment that occurred, and including the State of the Union address being torn right in front, right? Well, all these things reflect that there is a kind of some personal animosity that sits, that is above and beyond what you can call any kind of violation of rules or law or whatever you want to kind of call it. So there seems to be, so this statement is again a further reflection that she wants to do it. Otherwise, there's no investigation, there's no assessment. What is visible is the riots, right? What is not visible is what exactly has happened. Now, you talk to a lot of constitutional experts. The constitutional experts state that it is a First Amendment. So, how exercising the First Amendment does not constitute an impeachable offense? That's the first point. Second, where exactly this concept of incitement that occurred within the speech that resulted in the word insurrection? Okay, and there's again intelligence which says that some of these things were planned well in advance. If that was the case, who were behind it, what was the planning, etc. So Nancy Pelosi's rhetoric that you attribute seems to be a predisposed view that she has rather than anything that what is actually behind it, I don't know. But there is clearly much more than meets the eye in terms of our, some of these statements that are coming out of our office.
On the Republican side, we have seen statements coming out of Lindsey Graham, who's saying, he told Fox that if you are going to erase Donald Trump from the party, then you are going to get erased, meaning the party. And so Lindsey Graham is saying, you cannot isolate Trump and then hope that the rest of the party will stay intact. And there are also other people such as Jim Jordan, Rand Paul, and Kevin McCarthy who are also saying you cannot impeach and you cannot split the party. So there is growing awareness now. And I'm sure the two Georgia Senate seats lost must really sting them, because I think in one of those races on November 3rd, the Republican candidate had won, except that in the runoff, that person lost. So this must be really rankling the Republicans. So you see now that in both parties there are two sections, and they are at each other, and we have to see how this plays out. So my question to you, sir, is Biden has said that I'm going to leave the Trump impeachment to the Senate, and the Senate is not really sure about this impeachment. What happened yesterday in Senate?
Well, I think you have raised a very important question, which is you cannot give, a Capitol Hill inaugural speech, which is to say, we all must come together. This is about unity. We must sink our differences. The word that is used, in the hour of peril, we are confronted with challenges. We must come together. We have our differences. We must unite. So there are 74 million people who still love, who have voted. And the Gallup poll this morning is 82% of the Republicans like Trump. So out of that 74 million who have voted for him, you're talking, even if you take 82%, that's close to about 60 million. The 60 million people are with him out of the 74 on the preferential polling. Now, you go ahead and say, I'm going to impeach you on day one without the due process and so on. Then I think what these people are saying is, do you want to unite the nation and forget and move forward? Because even he's not in office. He's not a threat. He's not in the office. Now, this is where you have to go back to Chuck Schumer's statement, right? Chuck Schumer says he's unfit to hold public office. So therefore, we must make sure that he no longer is able to contest and hold position. So Democrats may be having an agenda, and this is something that we discussed before the show started, which is to say, what is ailing the Republican Party? What is ailing the Republican Party is the leadership. And Trump was the unanimous leader who harmonized and brought a lot of people kind of together. So the target is Trump. The impeachment and all these proceedings is Project Trump, not to come. Then you come to the next, which is namely, you find that there is a lot of disunity within the Republicans. That is the truth, a lot of disunity. So I think this whole impeachment agenda is to keep the divided party divided with no leader, so the agenda can run. Whatever the Democratic agenda is, they can run unhindered. That seems to be the motivational force and the driving force, which is typical in any politics.
Let's take a quick look at global news. China's World Health Organization acted too slow per the panel to stem the pandemic and taking measures. Now we are hearing that several provinces inside China are actually shut down. So the pandemic is raging inside China now. What is the prognosis? Is this something new, a new variant? Is it the same original one from Wuhan? What are your thoughts? What does your information tell you?
The information that I get is the Wuhan is the foundation. The variances are all coming, at least within China out of that. There is no variant that has come or implanted from United Kingdom or from Japan or from United States. So it is all self-triggered from whatever those Wuhan labs are. This is one of the points of criticism of WHO, strangely so, which China is rejecting, that there is no data that has been given by China in terms of what they have found and what is the root cause, what is the structure of this virus. Are there many variants, or it's a single way, or is it a single? Does the mutation causes more variabilities in the structure of this? Unknown. So there's a lot of missing data. This has been one of the criticisms. And second, if China has found this out, why it has not communicated the same to the rest of the world so this could have been contained. Now, the answer to these two questions is reflective of what's happening within China. It is quite probable that much of this data either is lost or seems to have been lost, or I don't know what it is, but otherwise you can't have such a massive breakout that's happening to the extent that these people are leaving their homes and their cattle behind and being evacuated. So therefore, they're leaving their property, they're leaving their farming stuff and moving out. Reflects that China is also struggling and grappling with a big issue, right? It is being China. We only have got the modicum. We only have got only a sample. We'll never know, the true magnitude of this issue. So the answer to the question is probably we don't know what we don't know.
Moving on, Japan's Prime Minister Suga pursues Biden's commitments on free and open Indo-Pacific. We have to remember these words, Indo-Pacific versus Asia-Pacific. Biden has been sticking to Asia-Pacific. Now Suga is again kind of holding his hand and saying, wait, this is not Asia-Pacific, this is Indo-Pacific. What is the subtlety here, sir? Can you unravel this for us?
Yes. I think that, I'm a strong and firm believer in, I'll put my step forward in the Indo-Pacific kind of a model. On the East, Japan sees itself as the pillar of the security and trade apparatus. And on the eastern side, they see Indo. So on the western side, they see India as the anchor. So in other words, if you divide it as Pacific, South China Sea, Indian Ocean, and forward going up to Djibouti, they see India as the key security architecture, and then they see themselves, Australia and Japan, with South China nations as the architects of the Pacific and South China kind of rim. So he says the Indo-Pacific strategy as both a trade and security kind of an architecture is the right word. It's not Asia-Pacific because it is not all-encompassing Asia-Pacific. We have changed the name. We have changed the architecture. We have this 2+2 dialogue. Then we have the Quad as the security, and then we are providing the apparatus. So they got wind of this, which is to say these changes in names, as well as Kurt Campbell's position, which is effectively to state, we need to look at this security apparatus, and we can't just simply be on Pacific. We have to extend this thing well beyond the Indian Ocean, well into Indian Ocean, and going all the way back to Djibouti. So they eliminated this word, and they wanted to bifurcate this into Asia Pacific and the Indian Ocean architecture. And Suga is saying, we have done all the hard work. We have a broad framework. You better get he's giving us, in a typical Japanese manner, he's giving a subtle message. It is Indo-Pacific. Okay, you guys are out. We are the custodians of CPTP, CPP, the Trans-Pacific Comprehensive Partnership. We are the custodians. Anybody who is coming in has to be. We are also the custodian of APAC. We are also the custodian of ASEAN. So under these circumstances, okay, please don't change this narrative and change the name. Almost giving a message, you make a decision, do you want to be part of it or you don't want to be part of it? We'll take care.
The Indian government offers to put on hold the new farm bills for a period of up to 18 months. This was the crux of the conversation that took place between the agitating farmers associations and the Indian government. See, the Supreme Court has put a stay on it. Now the Indian government is saying we will not implement it for 18 months. Now, is this something that will be tried on other things also? I'm just looking forward into other things that will be coming down. Will every time this government go and ask the Supreme Court whether, oh, I have passed this bill, should I go ahead and implement it, or what do you think? Isn't it the other way around? Legislature is the one that passes the laws. We have had instances where even after a Supreme Court ruling, the legislature goes back and changes the law to override the Supreme Court ruling. For example, the nationalization of banks in 1969.
Yeah.
So this overreach by judiciary into executive is a very interesting study in democracy. How do you see this whole thing play out?
I have three specific observations on this. One is the reform of the agro sector is long overdue, right? Here we call it as connecting the growers to buyers, and intermediaries between growers to buyers has always resulted in an asymmetric equilibrium in the trade. Okay, simply means price as well as the benefits of on either side. The guy who buys, the guy who produces. Benefits have never reached the intermediaries have benefited. Now that should not be the case in any ecosystem. So all the models that we have done, we have some investments. Our fund has got investments as well in this sector. So it works perfectly. The reform is needed. So the reform was done by, and everybody unilaterally accepted that the reforms are the good reforms that has been enacted. Now that you asked me a very interesting question, which is to say this triangular struggle in India between the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. To some extent, the executive branch and the legislative branch kind of merges into one single entity, unlike in United States. So therefore, it seems like that the Supreme Court in India has decided governance part of any enactment of law and the outcomes, it seems to be accountable, not the legal part. Because what you are delving into is the governance of the execution of the law. When you have a bunch of people coming in and protesting, you are saying protest is a dissent agreeable in a democracy. Okay, fine. But you make a protest, but it cannot be at the destruction of public property. And when you have a vast number of people agreeing to it, you have a bunch of people, you protest and you walk. But you can't say, I'm going to hold the country to ransom. So then the Supreme Court says, oh, you guys need to kind of sit together and talk. You're not resolving, so I'm getting involved. So that is the governance part of it. Governance in the execution. Now, here's the malady. They got into the governance. They got into a mess. Now then they say, hey, it is the responsibility of the Delhi police to determine who comes in and who doesn't come out. And then, how that law needs to be, how the lawfulness needs to be managed. It's not my responsibility. It's the responsibility of the Delhi police. So there is a dichotomy. I've asked this question to some of these eminent people, who run the legal process within India. So the answer that I got is a typical, subtle answer, which is to say, we are still an evolving democracy. So we are trying to find our way out. So my view is, as you rightly asked the question, we have seen this not only in this particular form, we have also seen in the taxation laws. One of the sole contentions, companies, you go back retrospective and then you begin to ask the companies to pay kind of taxes. So to me, I think that this is going to be a struggle as India tries to evolve into a 5 trillion economy. The Supreme Court should stay away from these issues. And on one agitation, they say all the people sitting there and holding the communities and holding the nation to ransom, right, is illegal and they must be evacuated. Then what they do? These people don't leave. So then they use the political fulcrum around the world and try to create an issue. Right? When 9 out of 10 people or 8 out of 10 people agree to a law, then you say the law is fair. Otherwise, people won't, you can't implement a law if people behind the execution of it are not taking ownership of it. In the case of agriculture, this particular reform, there seems to be at least few states whom I've talked to, they seem to be amenable and they think that this is the right thing and it benefits everybody and the process is underway, except one specific state or maybe 2 specific states were joined. So this is a very bad precedent, sir. Very bad precedents for not just this reform, but all future reforms. So if I decide I can assemble a whole bunch of 100,000 people, 200,000 people, I can hold the country to ransom and say I don't like this law, so therefore I'm going to kind of come in. By the way, all these people were looked after in a 5-star style kind of facility, so it makes it even more a jamboree for doing this. This has been, Financial Express. Sunil Jain has written excellent pieces on this on this form. He says, "Do not give in, do not give in, do not give in," because it just is, good thing is going to be thrown for a bad kind of an outcome. And what do they come up with? They say, okay, we're going to defer this for 12 to 18 months. I hope the government recognizes and comes up with a framework to take this forward and also establishes the Supreme Court that if every time this is going to happen, then reforms can never be advanced and no point in blaming the government. So therefore, I think that's my observation.
Thank you for that. And let's take a quick look at some other things happening in India. We are around 27 minutes into our program. Hopefully we can touch upon these two and then we can sign off for today. This is a very interesting development and I have my own 2 cents on why this is happening, but I'll wait till after you've made your inputs. Amazon India is collaborating with major venture funds to try and set up Y Combinator type of units. These are what you would call as seeding environments where you create an infrastructure where startup companies, without having to worry about taking care of having rental and other things to take care of, they are brought into a single place where a common pool of resources such as meeting rooms and facilities, food, everything, so that people don't have to have their own stuff and not have to spend time worrying about the logistical operation of a startup. A startup has a razor-like focus on getting their idea out to the market as quickly as possible. Long winding, I'm so sorry about this because I needed to explain what a Y Combinator is for the viewers. So that is a very good move. But why is Amazon India so keen on this is the question that I want answered from your perspective. The second one is Amazon Web Services is going to partner with India in setting up a quantum grid computer applications lab. Quantum computing, we know, is the next generation computing. So I see these two as very significant moves. What are your thoughts?
I think that is a great question. So let me give you on the first one, which is the starting ecosystem. Historically, this is something that in going back to United States, coming here, Cisco used to do this. If you recall, going back, the whole infrastructure ecosystem was germinated. So I think Amazon is saying, we are big. It's not Amazon retail. Amazon retail is very big because the metrics that they have laid out gives the clue as to why they are investing. They are investing in the startup ecosystem with an eye in mind that the outcome or the output from some of these initiatives will result in $10 billion worth of economic output being purchased from these companies which germinate out of this over the next 4 or 5 years by Amazon. So there is a very specific trade volume number that Amazon is kind of raising its hand as an outcome to come, not just simply, leap of faith, I'll put something and what happens. I think that is very good. Now, here's my take. There's another initiative that is going on, which is this issue between Reliance and Amazon in the future retail, right? So now that I think there's a resolution, which is to say future retail now is going to be acquired by Reliance. And you had two dichotomous, so Amazon filed in Singapore and Reliance and future retail in India. Anyway, I think that's going to be consummated. So they're saying they need substitution. So they will say we'll start from ground up and we'll build this kind of capabilities with new idea. Amazon never goes back and buys something that is 10 years old. It's only thinking about what is 10 to 100 years from now. So to me, I can see some dots being connected. As far as the grid computing is concerned, clearly cloud is the future. And cloud and quantum are the future. Amazon is taking a heads up lead, which is saying, I want to partner with you and set this up. Microsoft is also big in India. IBM is also big in India. But it's a very laudable initiative by Amazon in terms of, flavor. The other point is that Jeff Bezos does have a very good relationship with, he has been in the US-India Business Council. He has attended a number of meetings with Prime Minister Modi. There's also personal chemistry between the two of them. However much one perceives him as left in his media business, which is Washington Post, there is still that, modicum of relationship that all these fellows have with Mr. Modi, who is a leading figure. And my only word of caution is India has to learn from what has happened in the United States. That's my final point on that.
So to sum up my viewpoint on this, you see, a lot of people said, oh, why did India do a lockdown without any notice, any advance notice? India didn't give its citizens a chance to prepare for the lockdown. They shut it down like a switch. So many people were inconvenienced, they had to go back to their native places and so on and so forth. But if you look at the results today, India is perhaps one of the few countries where the COVID has seen a U-shaped decline in the newer cases. So India has figured out a way to bottle up this new virus. And the world is sitting up and taking notice. Like you said, Amazon is looking at a 10 to 100 year strategy. They are saying, India, despite being one of the most populous countries in the world, has figured out a way to keep this thing under control. And I think it's important that as the West still tries to figure its way out of this coronavirus and its variants, India seems to have figured out a way to have a balance between normalcy and battling the new virus. So I think that is the reward that India is getting now for having managed that. This is just my observation. I could be wrong. Viewers, if you have a different viewpoint, please feel free to chime in through your comments. And also, we will now be bringing this episode to a close, unless you want to add something to it, sir.
No, I just want to congratulate. That's a very interesting observation that you have brought about, which is namely keeping that pandemic point of view as to how to manage. Disruptive technologies have a profound influence on future business models. Now, disruptive influence by a pandemic, India seems to have managed, and I think that your point is that Amazon is saying if we have a disruptive pandemic, then we need a framework with which you can implant a business techno model. And I think that's your point, which is, I think, an excellent point in terms of the observation that you're bringing out, sir.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. Viewers, it is my pleasure to have this process continue, and for that, we need your support. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so. The subscription button runs on the bottom right corner of your video as this live broadcast progresses. And also please refer us to your friends and relatives. We are committed, and I as well as Sridharji, it takes us a long time to put together this programming, and you will notice now we have established this as a track record. We are 1 or 2 days ahead of news when it becomes mainstream news. So you actually are getting a heads up about what is coming down the pipeline, and we appreciate your support thus far. We would like to do more with this. We would like to have an even better infrastructure, even better reporting facilities. So to do all this stuff, we need your help, and it's not monetary as much as it is just in form of subscriptions. We need to grow to the next level. We are really trying hard to do it ourselves also, but we need your help. Thank you very much, Sridharji, and we'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same channels. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar. Have a good day, everybody.